ESPN's #1 source for green and gold information.
What's the biggest mistake that new quarterbacks make? Turnovers. And he hasn't had it.
And mating rituals.
The Shed Aquarium in Chicago was one of my favorite school field trips, and I believe there were dolphins there, but they left that out.
Our most musically inclined and bald guest.
Wow, I'm a little, it's only love. It's only love.
It's Rob Demovsky on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy.
We certainly appreciate Rob's perspective. Maybe he can pull us out of the nosedive that we are doing here on Jen, Gabe, and Chewy this morning. Good morning, Rob. How are you today?
I'm good, Jen. I don't know that I have good news for you, though, because I was looking at the schedule, and the next game they might win is the Giants, December, whatever that is.
That's what Gabe said.
There we go.
And I said, I'm not even convinced that would happen. And Gabe said it'll be our national nightmare because it's a primetime game.
Monday Night Football.
Unless there is the new rule, they can flex Monday night.
Well, then they certainly will.
Well, the only problem is, I was looking at this. Believe me, I've thought a lot about this. is I believe the Jets play at home on Sunday, so I don't know if it's going to be possible. So you have to double check the national schedule on that. But I'm almost sure the Jets are home the day before, unless they flip flop them. But I think the Jets are playing somebody bad. But maybe, who knows? Maybe that's Rodgers' return to football, and they move it.
So my issue, Rob, is that a few weeks ago when they were losing, and probably shouldn't have been losing, but were losing, I thought, but the good news is this team can get better. And here's what yesterday's game did for me. It took that possibility right off the table. Now I'm looking at this team going, they're bad, and I don't think it's going to get better. Am I erred in that thought?
No, because you would have some hope that maybe it would get better if there was someone who had like a good performance, right? Like if somebody showed signs. But I mean, like, look at the stat sheet and the skill players. And I realize, that there's other players than just the skill position guys, but like, look at the combined targets for who should be your best two receivers, Dobbs and Watson. And then look at the production with those targets. It was terrible. Like, I mean, what was it like? I mean, Watson was targeted 9 times, or Dobbs targeted 9 times, had 4 catches for 18 yards. Watson was targeted 8 times. I mean, like, that's terrible with the production that they put together versus flip it around to the Vikings guys and, the catch percentages and the yards of that Addison, Hawkinson, and Osborne had. I mean, heck, Osborne, what was he targeted? 10 times, had 8 catches. Like, it's just that shows you that there's just nothing happening for this team. Not even Aaron Jones's return has sparked anything.
Rob, do you think these guys are afraid to go into work today? Because I'm just looking back. If we played a stretch like this or a game like this, we would be so nervous going into the building today, knowing that we're going to get screamed at and this week of practice is going to stink. Do these guys have any of that?
I don't think so, Chewy. Though I mean, we can only know what how Matt LaFleur is with us. It's a little hard to know how he is with the team, but even with us, Mike Holmgren was volatile, right? Mm-hmm. Like Holmgren would snap at us. Now, LaFleur snapped at Pete Doherty. What was that? Week 3 or 4, I think it was. Week 4. And that's about the only glimpse in 4.5 years that we've seen that he could snap at somebody. And look, not saying that, he's got to go Bob Knight and throw a chair across the meeting room, but you would like a little bit of fear in your players after performances like this, because what they're doing is just, it hasn't worked. And here's what makes me think that there is no, there is no fear, or there is no, volatility from LaFleur. Go back and look. You won't find this on any podium, press conference, or any clip. But if you find LaFleur's interview with Larry McCarron that they do on the radio broadcast, and then they post it on the website, it's like a 2.5-minute interview, and literally the last words that LaFleur says, and he's almost downtrodden about it, is, "We're a mess right now."
Which
that's bad, right?
Yeah,
right. But when the head coach's last message, his last words are, "We're a mess right now," that's not good.
Rob, trade deadline is tomorrow. I think the Packers should be taking calls on just about anyone if somebody's interested in that player.
Yeah.
I have very few players that would be on the untouchable list. Who would be on your untouchable list?
Well, let me take this approach, Gabe. I totally get what you're saying. I think you make a valid point. However, you need more players, not less. Like, they need more experience, not less experience. And yeah, okay, fine. You trade Aaron Jones, or, let's say Bakhtiari was still on the roster and you could trade him, or Preston Smith, or, Devondre Campbell, or whoever might be the best trade options. Okay, fine. Then you're just starting over and getting younger. I mean, part of the problem with this team is that they're young to begin with and inexperienced. Like, I realize, there's certain, star veteran players that haven't produced very well, but you can't start over at every position, right? Like, I mean, you have to return something next year that gives you some sort of a base, because I think a part of this team's problem is the lack of experience and the rookie mistakes and the young player mistakes. I know.
But what about the young player promise, Rob? Shouldn't there be promise from some of these guys as well? You mentioned, like, if somebody has a big game, that's how it gives you that faith going forward. Like, I haven't seen I've not seen a 1 to 2 year jump from Watson or Dobbs in the pass catching department.
Right, and there's not a Jordan Addison, right? Like the Vikings have.
Mm-hmm.
It's Jordan Addison, right? It's
Jordan Addison.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, there's not a like he's a rookie. Was obviously a first round pick, but like, there's nothing like, oh man, look at that. This is what we could have for a while. So I get you. I understand your point, Gabe. It's hard to be young all the time. And, maybe the difference yesterday, until Cousins got hurt, was that they had a veteran quarterback and the Packers did not. Maybe it's as simple as the quarterback tilts the field and Cousins obviously is better than Love. So maybe that's why the Dobbs and Watsons aren't doing anything. I don't know. Maybe it is, but they're in a hard spot right now because their roster just isn't very good.
Rob Demovsky hanging out here with Jen, Gabe, and Chewy. All right, Rob, let's try for some optimism. What is one area, and I rattled off all of the things, right? Like I said, if you were playing bingo and you had all of these things on your card, it's basically a blackout. Yeah. Good for you. You win. Slow starts, penalties, drops, missed field goal. Oh, but wait, there was an offsides penalty, so they were able to redo the field goal. That's not going to happen every single time. Poor offensive line play, inaccurate, and it does seem like there is a disconnect yet again between the defensive backs and the defensive coordinator as far as how they want to be defending these opponents. What is one thing they could do this week better that you would be like, okay, they still lost to the Rams, but at least blank?
Can I pull a Jair Alexander and say, I don't know?
Sure.
Did you guys hear? Did you hear?
Oh, we played
it twice.
Yep, we got it.
Yeah, I lost count I stopped counting at 5 I don't knows from Jair. I'm sure there was probably more, but and then I don't know if this was caught on tape, but after kind of sort of broke up, Jair kind of looked at us and said, I learned my lesson. I'm not getting scolded this time. So clearly he had been
yelled at.
Oh, geez.
Clearly he had gotten yelled at for something that he had said previously. It might have been, he was the one who said, I think wasn't Jair, was it Rasul the one who said, I guess the defense is going to have to, or I guess the offense is, the defense is going to have to allow no touchdowns to make up for the offense. Right?
See, and if I'm a coach, man, that's not something I'm even going to touch. Okay? Guys should be able to air their frustrations. Guys should be able to speak their mind. You can't reprimand these guys for talking. Go put together a better scheme. Don't waste your time.
Reprimand them for playing, not talking. Right?
But Rob,
that goes back to Chewy's point earlier about being scared to come into work. Reprimand them for what they did on the field, not what they said in the media.
But even Jair and Elton Jenkins, who are considered to be one of the best at their position, are playing like garbage. So is Jair hurt, or is he just written this team off already? I
think he's hurt. And I think there's a little bit of both. And look, Chewy, you know this as better than any of us. I mean, there are some guys in a locker room that when things go bad, that they kind of cash it in, right? I mean, like that is a, shouldn't say that's a fact because I don't know it for sure, but
it's
you've
real.
seen guys. Yeah, it's real. That's a great way to put it because and there's a segment of the locker room, I'm sure, that is battling that, whether they even know it or not in their own mind, is battling that right now. Like, is it worth it? Is it worth, giving them maximum effort for a team that's going nowhere? It's not something that we've seen around here very much. At least I haven't in 27 years of doing this. I can count on one hand the number of seasons where it went like this. But this feels a little bit like 2018. Now, for different reasons. I mean, that the quarterback and the coach hated each other in 2018, and then McCarthy obviously got fired. I'm not suggesting that's the way it's going to go, but that other players picked up on that season, and you could sort of tell that they knew it. And what other players are picking up on now? Maybe it's that the defense doesn't trust and doesn't believe in the offense, and therefore, there could be two effects. One, the defense could be like, all right, the offense isn't any good. We're going to put this team on our back and win the game, which I think they kind of tried to do in the last two games against bad offenses with Denver and the Raiders. Or you could say, well, we're playing our butts off and the offense stinks and we got no chance. It could go either way.
Why on earth were the Packers rumored to be interested in Derrick Henry before the Titans told Henry they weren't planning on trading him?
Yeah, I had not, corroborated that at all, Gabe. So, we know they were interested in Jonathan Taylor. So maybe they, all that tells me is that, that there's a pretty good chance their running back room will look completely different next year. Both Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon could be gone.
I want to hang with Rob Demovsky for a second here because, Rob, I got a list in front of me. I'm going to rattle off some words.
Okay.
Cincinnati, South Dakota State, Oregon State, Baylor, Nevada, Mississippi, Michigan State, Nebraska, North Dakota State, Virginia. I think you know what path I'm on right now. That is, of course, the colleges that all of the skill position players went to for the Green Bay Packers. Is Goody sticking too much with this small program, peripheral Power 5 thing? They don't have a difference maker, a killer, a dog, somebody that you saw on Saturdays every weekend and went, man, what would it be like to have that guy on our pro team's offense in the future? We were saying you can hit on a few of those guys, right? Donald Driver for me will always be the example of Alcorn State or Alcorn, I think I've been told it's pronounced. But he's got a roster full of these guys. Is that a mistake in philosophy?
The weird thing, Jen, is that if you look on defense, it's Georgia, it's Michigan, it's big schools on defense. Much more so than it is at the skill positions, which is surprising. It's very, very surprising that he's gone that way. And I hadn't thought about it until you rattled that off because, heck, they got how many guys from Georgia on defense? They got Jair's from Louisville. Rashawn Gary is from Michigan, right? Rasul Douglas, I think, I'm pretty sure he went to a Power 5.
Keyshawn Nixon from South Carolina, Carrington Valentine from Kentucky. You can make the argument that those teams are.
Douglas went
Stokes,
to
was it Stokes, Washington?
Stokes was Georgia.
Georgia was Georgia.
Okay.
Auburn for Colby
Georgia.
Wooden. There's a you're right. There's a disparity there. Is your point, right?
Yeah, it is. It's weird. It's very strange that on defense they tend to go, Power 5 FBS, and on offense, even Aaron Jones was UTEP, right? I was picked before. That was a TED pick, right? If I'm not mistaken.
It was, yes.
So even that he was not what you would consider a Power 5 or Group of 6 or whatever they call it. I hate college football, so I don't really follow it. I'm sorry.
Shots fired. And look, maybe to be honest with you, though, maybe me being in the college football space as often as I am during the week has got me focusing on this because I'm seeing the disparity between the talent at these levels and the talent that we are focusing on every week. And I'm wondering why Goody has seemingly made such a commitment to this type of player.
But that's kind of what they've always done, isn't it, Rob? If he's
Dylan went to Boston College, right, Chewy?
Yeah, that's a Power 5. We don't win like a Power 5, but we're a Power
5. But if Goody's is a disciple of Ted Thompson, when you look at the receivers they had in the heyday of Rodgers, Greg Jennings was directional Michigan. James Jones was San Jose State. Jordy was
K-State.
Kentucky, Fresno State. Like those are. I don't know if Ted thought he could find something, and obviously he did, found an advantage there, and now he's just trying to continue it in today. I'm not sure.
Difference there was the Hall of Famer under center.
Right. Well, true. And also, maybe Ted was just better at identifying them. I mean, that's very possible as well. So I'm sorry about the college football thing, Jen, but can I just tell you this? Like in Denver last Saturday night, I was so bored that I turned on one of the Pac-12 games late at night, and I realized to myself, this is the first college football I've watched in years. And I watched the fourth quarter. Who was Oregon playing last? Not this weekend, but last weekend. Washington State, maybe. No, it was USC. It was USC.
Okay. Yeah, and they won.
I watched the end of that game, and it didn't make me want to turn college football.
I tell you what, though, start watching some games on Saturdays, Rob, because they're a hell of a lot better than what the Packers are putting out there.
My theory was I've watched enough bad football on Sundays. I don't want to watch it.
Here's what I'll do. I'll start texting you a list of games. I'll start texting you a list of games on Saturday. Like, hey, if you find yourself with nothing to do, put this on, and you'll be pleasantly surprised.
I take that back. I did watch my alma mater. I went to Ohio U. They played Miami of Ohio in the big rivalry game. It was on one of the regional sports channels this weekend. And I watched it not just because I cared about the game. I just wanted to see if they showed any shots of campus to see if it had changed much lately.
No wonder you hate college football.
Schwabenon's got a good team there, Rob, right down the road.
All right, listen, we appreciate your perspective. Just some food for thought there as far as the philosophy of drafting offensive players. Rob is always good for some insight. You can follow him, of course, on Twitter and on ESPN.com.